Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, Season 4. This episode goes to 11. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Our very special guest on this episode is Kelly Higginson, President and CEO, Restaurants Canada, a veteran food service operator turned advocate and lobbyist representing the food service industry to governments in some of the toughest times they've known coming out of the punishing COVID year. It's a great interview. I really liked it.
Yep, absolutely. We've had people from Restaurants Canada join our podcast in the past, so we have a pretty good beat in terms of what's going on in the industry. But obviously, Kelly is coming in the middle of a major storm. Her industry is really facing some major headwinds, but I really liked her positive attitude, to be honest. I think she's really the right person, the right approach, the right style for the industry right now.
Yeah, they definitely need better and certainly aggressive advocacy work at all levels of government. And she was just about to get in a plane to go to Ottawa. So anyway, we'll get to hear more of that a bit later. Let's jump into the news. First of all, new report from the Dalhousie Agri-Foods Analytics Lab on the impact of rising food on holiday meals. So survey, we'll put a link into the survey. First of all, I love that you included eggnog in the traditional dinner.
That's
I only
right.
drink it once a year.
I forgot you like eggnog. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what's in it. I don't want to really know.
You're one of 3 Canadians who like eggnog.
Well, thank you for including that. Your report says
included fruitcake.
Well, you give and take. Cost of a meal is $105.
You don't like fruitcake because you can't barbecue it. That's a problem.
That and I don't need any more. I don't know, and I don't want to bust on the fruitcake people. Anyway, I'm
a fruitcake person. I love fruitcake.
I don't think the audience will be surprised at that.
Hey! Whoa.
What's going on there? Cost of a meal, $105, $9.50 each. You could shave a few dollars off replacing turkey with ham for those who would like to do so, and then you suggest some other alternatives to. There's a lot of people, as you say in the report, who are, food insecure. So, every dollar counts, and you give a few ideas about how to manage this. But it's gone up, 20%, and it may or may not go down. But it's certainly the cost of a holiday meal is more expensive.
Compared to last year, we're talking maybe 5-6%, not that much. Okay, and so if you're hosting, we wanted to price out a typical holiday meal so people have an idea what to budget, and we basically we structure it down for the group and per portion. So per portion, of course, you can do a lot of things when you're hosting. You can buy some expensive stuff. You can buy some affordable stuff. But we actually believe that your range should be anywhere between $9.75, $9.77 to $12.75, $12.77 per person. So the $9.77, that would be the lower end of things. That would be the minimum for a turkey dinner. So let's keep in mind this is for turkey, and for the upper end, it's $12.77. Now, if you think that turkey is too expensive, there are alternatives on our list now. There are turkey dinners there. There's also a priced ham dinner, a priced chicken dinner, roast beef, and salmon. So you have choices all over the place. If you're depending on your budget, you can actually do different things. Of course, when we look at prices, the cheapest holiday dinner you can actually offer to your guests is a chicken dinner, according to the 5 options that you have.
Winner, chicken dinner. I take a chicken dinner now. I love turkey, but I'll go with any excuse.
What's special about chicken?
I don't know. I just like chicken, a well-done chicken.
Well, everyone likes chicken, but it's not special.
It's not special, but the people with you are special. So, hey, there you go. Right? Whatever you're eating, it's the people.
Your people are special. I've met them. They're very special. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll put a link into the reports. It's and you've got, I guess, next week. Is it next week's episode? The Big Kahuna gets released. It's December 6th.
That's right. December 7th.
Yeah. December 7th.
Never on the 8th. Never on the 1st or 6th.
On the 8th. Never when Mr. Lenin was assassinated, right?
Never.
Always on. Never.
14
on
years,
that
we never.
date.
And December 6th, obviously, Polytechnic. We want to make sure that people give proper attention to what happened in 1989, and so that we never actually picked those dates. But 7th is the date for this year, December 7th.
All right. Well, audience can look forward to some insider views on that report, which is so popular. Now, a follow-up of sorts. Looks like it is last call for the beer store. Now, we don't really have any new news to report. It is kind of looking more like it's going to be something. Still lots of questions to be answered. I mean, my question is, what system replaces the super effective and distributed labor system of the returns empty system? That's my most frequent interaction. That works pretty well. We got everything from, who does what, who can sell what, is it going into convenience stores in Ontario, and in what ways can the craft brewers win and all this? What are you thinking about briefly? We don't have any information to go on. I suspect it's going to happen soon, but any quick thoughts
the Ford government hinted that they were ending the 10-year deal, which is to start the new deal is to start in 2025, and so for 10 years. So they have until the end of this year to let the people know, to let the beer store know, the conglomerate know if whether or not they're renewing the contract, and it's looking like they won't. But you're right. I mean, the recycling picture is probably the one thing that most people are concerned about. It's a practical system. I actually lived in Ontario. It's pretty practical. You go in. I do have some concerns about the quality of the service, the smell, the cleanliness of the place. But for recycling, for the green supply chain, it worked very well for Ontarians. So, but other provinces have figured it out. The beer store is only on Ontario. In other places, they figure it out. So I'm sure the Ontarians will be able to figure it out. But my guess is that the beer store, the infrastructure, will probably remain in order to support the province's ability to host or receive bottles and cans that are to be recycled. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think. Do you live close to a beer store?
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, I think what we'll probably see, if I had to put my guessing hat on, so to speak, is a blend, like a breakup of the monopoly, but still they will exist in some way, shape, or form. I mean, they perform a role. People go there. So big changes ahead, and we'll cover them as soon as we know them. We'll speak the truth as soon as we know it.
No, I don't think they're going to actually adopt the Quebec model where beer is sold at Toys R Us, but I do think think that it's going to be a little bit more liberated. And Ontarians need choice, and frankly, I'm thinking about microbrewers. Microbrewers need the attention. And right now, the beer stores take a whole lot of space. And if you want a 2-4 of this or 12 of that, they have a monopoly. And so it's hard to get a 12 or 24 of your absolutely favorite beer beyond the beer cartel.
Or home delivered. I mean, that was one of the things that COVID cracked open is home delivery. I get my craft brewing beer home delivered. So irony is officially dead. Thousands of environmental types and government types will fill the skies with their ambitions to net zero as they make their way to COP28. Where is it? Dubai? It's over there in the Middle East.
It's in Dubai. Yes. Have you been to Dubai?
It's in Dubai. I have never been to Dubai, but
there's a lot of sand there.
There's a lot of sand. There's a lot of carbon emitting oils. So irony is dead in a whole bunch of different ways. Any expectations coming out of COP24, the big environmental conference, that you want to speak of relevant to the food industry?
I don't want to suggest that this meeting is in vain. People do get together for a variety of reasons, but 70,000 delegates over 2 weeks. Seriously, do we need that? I mean, I think the Paris Accord in 2015 was quite important. So we know what we need to do. We all know what we need to do. And we have targets, and those targets are pretty clear as far as I'm concerned. And so I don't know, like my expectations are quite low for this particular meeting. I would have liked to have seen perhaps a gathering that would be a little bit more modest to send the right signal. But right now, because of this perceived hypocrisy, it's probably going to be affecting the group's ability to convey any positive message about climate change, or how do we deal with climate change generally speaking. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, but it is, I mean, I can't remember the last time I went to a conference that was 2 weeks long. I mean, how do you get anything done in 2 weeks? I mean, it's a vacation. I mean, basically.
Yeah.
Would you go for a? I mean, I know people who's going there. I was actually asked if I wanted to go. I think it was about 6 months ago, to be part of a panel there. I didn't see the point. I just didn't see the point of going to Dubai, burn tons of kerosene to attend a meeting and not knowing whether or not my participation would actually make a difference.
Well, I mean, a couple of thoughts. One is, yes, we all need to get together to talk about these big issues. So all kidding aside, I mean, there's probably not any more pressing issues globally that affect us all than climate change.
Oh, yeah, especially
for food. How many times do you say it in an episode, right? The cost of food and food affordability is impacted by environmental change. Do we all need to do this? Does it need to be 2 weeks long? Does it? I don't think they help the movement, if we can call it a movement, by doing all this. But, anyway.
Honestly, 70,000 is a lot of people. Like a lot of people.
I'm not as fussed about the 70,000 number, because it's a big issue, right? There's so many moving parts to a very big issue. It's a global issue. So I'm glad there's 70,000 people there, and they're not all from the same place in kind of ways. I just wish they didn't all have to fly.
I'm giving a talk in Red Deer in person. But tomorrow I have 3 webinars that I'm delivering from my hotel to different folks around the country. So you do that too, Michael. So this is the new world, and then I do accept invitations, of course, but sometimes I do get invited by groups that are concerned about the environment, and they want me to deliver a webinar. It's not the same thing. I get it. I did one last week in Vancouver for the BC food protection folks. But the way they set it up, I was able to see them, and they were able to see me. The large group, it kind of worked, and the facilitation was actually quite good. It was in real time, and we were able to exchange it. It was almost as if I was in the room for a while. And so you can actually make it work and save a few dollars. And frankly, I'm not a big fan of traveling, so I don't mind being invited to do webinars personally. But I do think that more and more organizations will think about how to do that. And personally, I think for COP28, it should have actually figured a way to do some of that stuff virtually and not everything in person.
All right. Well, hopefully, the environmental movement can find their way to Zoom some way, shape, or another. Yeah. Just before we get to our interview, let's talk about the giant balls of poison that cantaloupe are. I'm not the, I put cantaloupe now in the same category I put raw chicken. Deadly, can be deadly. My problem. Somehow it's my problem that I have to deal with. Just like on chicken, that drives me crazy too. Like, it's my problem that there's salmonella. Shouldn't you solve that before you put it in my house? I feel the same way about cantaloupe. I think this is going to be just, I don't know. I don't even like cantaloupe, so I guess I'm a bit biased. But listen, this is not new, and the recall system. Somebody died from this. This is serious shit, right?
That's right. Yeah,
literally and figuratively. So can't we do a better job of recalls? And can't the cantaloupe business fix this problem?
Yeah, I think there were almost 20 people hospitalized. One fatality, unfortunately. It's really unfortunate. Yesterday, I was actually with a group in Toronto with food regulators, and I started my talk about the cantaloupe situation. And of course, I kind of laughed, saying, "Well, do you like cantaloupes? Not anymore." Blah ha ha ha. But I mean, the reality is that one person passed away, and many people are exposed to this risk. And what I've criticized, and the CFI was actually in the room, and what I've said was, I think in 2023, and we're about to start 2024, we need to figure out a better way to communicate risks to the public instead of just relying on mass media. Mass media is being slaughtered right now. And a lot of people actually got their information from Facebook for many years. And because of the Meta collapse in the summer, people don't get information. And when you get a recall affecting a raw product like cantaloupes, a few years ago was onions from California. And 4 years ago, if you remember, Michael, there was this huge recall affecting romaine lettuce in the middle of the holidays.
Right.
Who listens to the news during the holidays? The onion recall from California happened in August. Who listens to the news in August? So the CFI's response to me was, well, we have an alert system. You can just register. Well, do you know how many Canadians are registered to that alert system, which I'm sure you didn't know anything about? 80,000 people. That's it. Yeah. 80,000 out of 39 million people. Wow. We need to figure out, when COVID hit, Ottawa spent millions of dollars developing an app in a matter of weeks telling you and I if we were exposed to someone with COVID. You remember that?
The ping-demic, as the Brits called it, right? You're getting pings that you might have been exposed, or
you get a ping if you're exposed. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of the app because it was COVID, but I think we can figure something out for recalls. Telling you and I if we have a contaminated cantaloupe in our fridge, because right now, do you know what's going to happen? Longos, Sobeys, Loblaws, they're selling cantaloupes. You walk in, you walk away from cantaloupes. Doesn't matter if it's from Mexico or anybody else. Yep. You just walk away, and there's going to be tons of cantaloupes being wasted.
When people need the food. All right, well, let's come back to that, because I think there's other solutions. I want to get to that.
I will leave my soapbox now.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You're on the right box, I think, from my perspective. Speaking of, well, not soapboxes, but speaking of great interviews. How about that for a choppy transition? Let's hear from Kelly Higginson, President CEO of Restaurants Canada. Kelly, welcome to the Food Professor podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are thrilled you could make time to join us out of your busy day. It is what a job you've got. I want to hear all about it, and what an industry. We love the industry. I'm not sure we love your job every day, but you guys. Why do we start off? Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what you do for a living.
Thank you. Yes, my job, I have to say, for all the reasons, I absolutely love my job. I came out of 25 to 27, we'll leave it at that, years in the industry. Started years and years ago at a well-known chain that was, known for some really incredible culture practices, great concept, and spent a number of years doing openings and trainings, and just really fell in love with the industry. It was supposed to be a bartending job to help me get through university, and here I am.
And here you are, yeah.
But went on to run an independent national multi-unit business as well, and we opened up some really interesting concepts, somewhat groundbreaking in the country over the years, and fell in love with what this industry does, what we can bring to people's lives, being best in class employer, and all of those things. And it really kept me on my toes. And I was also lucky enough to be on the board of directors at Restaurants Canada for a number of years. And it was during the pandemic that it became abundantly clear to me, and obviously so many in the industry, that we really need a strong association to help support this industry. So a couple of years later, and here I am.
Mm-hmm. So you had a background as an operator, as an innovator. Talk about what it's like now being a lobbyist and advocate. As you said, I find in the world of advocacy, people come from sometimes operations, sometimes they're veteran advocacy people. How have you adjusted? You were on the board, so you certainly had some exposure to it. But what's that adjustment been like for you?
Well, I can be quite passionate, so I've had to. I have to sometimes just realize that not everybody has the same idea or maybe a different perception of the industry. And so, that really has helped shape the strategic plan that we've put forward about, okay, we need to back this bus up a bit and really have people understand the value, the importance, the perception of this industry, because it became clear, I think, through the pandemic and in conversations even today, that there is a real lack of understanding of the value and importance of this industry. So,
And do you describe your role? I've sometimes described the role of associations like Restaurants Canada as sometimes, in terms of government, explaining unintended consequences. Does that resonate with you?
That is such a good explanation of it. Yes, absolutely. It really is talking about, and we are lucky enough, as you know, we have a really talented chief economist, Chris Elliott, and the reports that he puts out. So we are lucky enough to have incredible data and stats at our fingertips, and that really helps form these conversations. So I'm not talking pie in the sky. I'm talking about real data here, and this is the reality. So it is a lot about talking about the unintended consequences for sure.
Let's talk about Restaurant Canada for a second. We shouldn't assume our listeners know who or what you are, your membership. I mean, your membership strikes me as so incredibly diverse, from single unit operators all the way to big national chains, from bars to restaurants. So talk about who are the members and what are your kind of key objectives and as an association to represent them?
Thank you. Yes. I love that you said diverse, because this industry is so incredibly diverse, as we all know, but I don't know sometimes if we really stand back and take a good look at the industry, if people can really understand how diverse it is across the country. So we do represent our membership number is just over 30,000, but we really do feel responsible for the 98,000 restaurants, bars, caterers across the country. Because I know as an operator, if I was in a small, medium-sized town, just trying to piece together my day-to-day operations as an independent, I'm not going to be too concerned whether I have a membership at Restaurants Canada. So, I work really hard with the team. We all work really hard to make sure that we're representing the diversity of the industry, which would be those 98,000 restaurants, bars, and caterers. And our membership does really spread between big, small, and independents all across the country. So, we've got the chains, and I think, we're at this point, we would say the industry itself is about 60% chain and 40% independent multi-unit, and in the concepts, and our membership is reflective of that as well.
Now, you spoke earlier about reports and Chris Elliott's work. Recently, you actually released a new report, Food Service Facts 2023. I mean, that report really was a bit shocking. I mean, some of the content in there was shocking. We learned that 51% of your members are not making more, or barely. They're not making money, essentially. And that's an alarming piece of data. And we spoke, Michael and I, we spoke about this, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I mean, what's with government, what needs to happen, I guess? What are you asking? What kind of help do you think your members deserve at this point?
Yes. Well, where do we start? So,
it's a big question, but honestly, because
we don't want to trigger you, Kelly. We don't want to trigger you, but what are you asking, and why aren't they listening? I guess would be a short.
Yeah. So I guess a couple things. So it's 51% of operators are operating at a loss or barely breaking even. Which the more important number for me is that was 12% before the pandemic. So I really like to highlight that, because a lot of people have this misperception that this is a transient industry, bankruptcies are always been high, and that's just really not the truth. I mean, that number was 12% pre-pandemic. So there's a correlation there that directly points at a very unique time in history. So I guess I would start there with our help from the government. And we would start with CEBA. I mean, the 18-day extension that they gave for operators is just simply not enough. And we are asking the federal government to extend the repayment plan period for a year.
Or an extra year?
Well, I would, ideally we would say 2 years, but I have to be realistic in our asks. As I said, I've had to manage my passion and expectations.
Yeah.
So, to give operators that year to be able to receive the forgivable portion of this loan. And that to us is a really important piece of that. So, so we don't want a handout, but, we need these restaurants to be able to have the time they need for recalibrating what was an incredibly unique period in history. I mean, we can't resell an empty Saturday night, an empty month of a locked down restaurant, right? It's not like merchandise that sits on the shelf and then we open the doors, turn on the light, and then I can sell you that teddy bear. It's like those days, those loss of sales are gone. So we have to recalibrate, and there has been headwinds ever since we tried to reopen. So that would be the first thing. The next is really anything that impacts profitability, because we are looking at record high inflation that has impacted every single aspect of running a restaurant. So I know that we talk a lot about food costs in this podcast with the work you do, but we are seeing it not just food, but it's liquor, wine, beer, utilities, the fork, the knives, the cups, the even as far as getting your mechanical and restaurant equipment fixed and parts. And so inflation has just smacked every part of operations. So we are also looking at anything that impacts the profitability. So one of them asks on the immediate would be the upcoming excise tax. And I think we were pretty loud about this last year, but if no action is taken by Parliament, the federal beer taxes and alcohol taxes will rise again by another 4.7% in April because it's tied to inflation. So we're just saying cap that at 2%. I mean, don't add to the inflation. And this is where restaurants really end up getting hit, because we're at the end of the supply chain. So all along the supply chain, there's increases, whether it's for people picking the blueberries. I'll go back to my blueberry muffin. They pick the blueberries. That's more expensive. To store the blueberries is more expensive. To deliver the blueberries is more expensive all along. And then the blueberry muffin gets to us and it's increased by, 17, 18%. So that's something that we're really focusing on. We also are looking at implementing a pilot for a dedicated immigration stream for the hospitality industry. And we aren't looking for the temporary workers. We want access to more permanent residents for this country so that we can invest in these employees, as our industry likes to do, in training and developing and mentoring, and know that these employees are going to be around with us for a while. So those would be the top 3 points right now.
Big threes. Just going back to the alcohol tax, are you confident that the federal government will do like they did this year for next year?
No, I'm not confident at all. So that's one of the campaigns. I'm heading to Ottawa this afternoon with Richard Alexander, our Vice President of Government Affairs. And that's one of the key asks that we'll be talking about. And we'll be working closely on this for the coming months, because this is just, in my opinion, I recognize that none of these things are easy. And I recognize there's a lot of people asking for a lot right now. But this is an easy one. Don't force us to have to raise our prices again, which impacts, obviously, people's ability to continue to go out, because discretionary spending is down, because people have been hit with inflation from all aspects of their life. So give us an opportunity to continue to try and recover, and don't force us to raise prices for our guests.
Kelly, could you say more about your immigration asks? I'm not quite clear on what you're asking. A dedicated lane, something in the requirements that we publish around the world looking for certain roles. Say more about that.
Well, yes. So I think there's been a lot of talk about some of the temporary foreign workers that are brought in by different organizations and agriculture and food service and all sorts of different industries that have been, quite frankly, we've had to tap into this stream because we don't have the workers in the country. And that's really based on a demographic flip over the years that has happened. A lot of people pointed to, you aren't a great industry to work for, which I would, really, really debate that. The reality is that a lot less people are having children, a lot less children are working. So we've lost a stream. The first time job is definitely down a little bit. So as far as the immigration goes, we want a stream of employees, not dissimilar to what has been dedicated to bring in more nurses in healthcare. And so these people being brought into Canada, and they want to come to Canada, they want to immigrate to Canada, and they want to stay in Canada. And by doing that, as I said, it allows, first of all, they have open work permits, which is really important to us because when we get into the temporary stream, they have closed work permits. They can't work anywhere else. It's very restrictive. And that's not what our industry is looking for. We're looking for people who we can invest in, people that want to, work in the industry for a couple of years, support themselves in their education, and then maybe move on to something else, or people that want to stay in the industry and flourish in the industry. So, my years in operation, I've been lucky enough to work with so many people from around the world in the restaurants that we were opening, and they've stayed in the industry for a number of years, and they've raised families and bought houses, and it continued on to become really, really grateful and wonderful employees, but they also are people who are, hustling and bustling and enjoying their life in Canada. So,
So those demographic realities that you speak of, Sylvain and I talk about them often. I mean, you're not the only industry. All industries are facing this, and it's not a short-term issue. No, other industries, and yours as well, also respond with investing in technology. I'll give you an example. I was in Orlando this summer. I went through Del Taco, and the drive-through was completely AI. There wasn't a single person involved in there. And I talked to the folks from Del Taco, and they said, listen, we can't find these people. And the AI, by the way, never gets tired of upselling, so we love it for that. Never gets tired of would you like some fries with that?
Yes.
But talk about your attitude, your members' attitude, because in the retail industry, you're seeing a lot of automation come in that lends to productivity because it's just not a short-term issue. Like you've got, I feel industries have to really double down on their investment of technology, or they're just going to be chasing their own tails for a decade.
Absolutely. And we have seen a lot of incredibly innovative and automation, equipment come out. And that is a big aspect of what we're seeing people invest in. I will say, though, investment in our industry is extremely difficult right now when so many of our operators are carrying heavy debt loads. So that's another part of the conversation that I continue to have with government. We want to invest in the industry, whether that be investing in our employees and increasing the amount of benefit programs we have and all of those pieces of it, or as you're talking about, the automation piece. So we do see and work with a lot of the vendors and mechanical suppliers in the industry that have, it's quite incredible now what you can put together in a kitchen compared to just even 10 years ago. So we are seeing that, and that's definitely going to be a direction for the industry. It'll be a big part of the Restaurants Canada show this year is, we've got a really strong theme with Level Up. Our industry has changed, and a lot of the people that we are bringing in, whether it be speaking and the different panels, but also in the tech pavilion and in the equipment pavilion, is a lot of it is going to be around automation.
Now, absolutely. I think it's pretty clear that a lot of businesses are investing in technology. Do you think that, despite some challenges to get access to capital, do you think that the industry is ready to embrace this AI momentum that we're seeing everywhere right now? Like a lot of people are talking about AI, and do you think that the culture of the industry is ready to embrace this AI era we're starting right now?
I think so. And I say that hesitantly. We are a people business,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That makes it so hard. And I will tell you, I know I'm the old girl around, but I found it so difficult when I had to move our servers to doing their orders when I was back in operation on iPhones and iPads because they didn't look up then. And they actually found it quite difficult to do the orders and not look at the guest because this is what we're there for. So I think we're going to find some are a little bit more ready and resourceful and excited about it than others. And it's no different. I think back to when we replaced the reservation book with all the reservation systems. And I remember trying to talk one of the older general managers that we had in our system into switching to this computer reservation system. And my God, that was a challenging conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It really was. So, I think definitely they are looking for solutions. They are definitely open to the solutions because it has been an incredible period of time. And look, I think we've all seen the resourcefulness over the last 4 years. When push comes to shove, these people respond. Operators respond, and we've seen that with their efforts to get through the last 4 years. But I do think that we at Restaurants Canada, and I will say the vendors, and I've had these conversations with a lot of suppliers, they are going to have to really map this out and support their clients through this process. Because the other side of it is, these people are working extraordinary hours, extraordinarily hard just to keep the doors open on a day-to-day basis. So there isn't a lot of spare downtime to get their head around how AI is going to help them in their labor shortage. So it's going to have to be a team effort for sure.
Kelly, how is the industry thinking? And I guess this could be a controversial question or topic. How is the industry thinking coming out of COVID with hiring challenges, with everything you're facing about tactics or strategies like hospitality included, like getting rid of tipping? I mean, Sylvan has coined the phrase tipflation. We experience it, all of us, when we go into your members, not all your members, but we suddenly are say, hey, if it was great, tip them 25%. We're like, 25%? Those machines the machines are pre-programmed that way, and I'm not sure it's helping the industry. But talk about how the industry and your members are thinking about just different ways to approach. As you said, they're an innovative group. My goodness, how are they approaching this?
I hear you. And so tipping obviously is a big part of the business model. And that is a reality. And this is an industry that has always operated on slim margins. So, that is our starting place with this. And I think we have seen some creative operators look at alternative ways to, whether it's increase their prices on the menu and then pool some sort of a tip out or pay their employees a higher wage. Including a 15-18% increase on all the menu items. That has been very, very hard for some operators to continue with, and we've seen it backfire for a number of operators. So, because I think there's that sticker shock that people will have when that automatic value is added on. So, it's not an easy topic to work through for sure. I will say there are some best practices that I do wish the industry would take a little bit more seriously. And one of those would be, we cannot be putting a 30% option for tipping. If people want to tip something at that value, and I'm sure my team is probably shaking right now because the phone's going to ring off the hook today. But the reality is we are not doing any favors for the industry. If somebody wants to tip that high, they will hit other and they will go and do it, and make that extra effort. But I think tipping is a tough conversation, but the reality is it's a part of our business model. And the industry will be continuing to work through this. I would like to highlight, we have a tipping toolkit on our website that
oh, really? Okay.
Somehow I maybe have to deliver it to every operator's doors in person, but
I feel you're at the tipping point of this.
Yeah, you know what? It's for their own protection because there are some really significant CRA rules and regulations around tipping that the industry has to make sure they're following as far as how they distribute their tips, who touches the tips, when they get distributed, a whole bunch of things that are, while challenging, I don't disagree. The CRA doesn't make anything easy. That's not part of their mandate. Our operators need to be aware of it. So we do have a tipping toolkit, and we will be expanding that tipping toolkit to talk about some of the best practices. And some of those are maybe more realistic values that should be on these handheld machines. So, yeah.
To finish off our interview, do you want to talk a little bit about the RC show coming up?
I'd love to. I'm so excited. It's hard to believe that it's almost been a year since our last Restaurants Canada show. But as I said, it's going to be the theme of the show is level up. And I think, for those people who had a look at our food service facts and the rebalancing for growth issue for 2023, we're really taking a lot of the learnings of the last year and how can the industry adjust and continue to find some solutions. The reality is our industry has changed. I mean, full stop. And we really have to work together for, the collaboration and creativity to find predictability and stability again for our operators. And so there's going to be a lot of solutions in a conference style with a lot of great speakers to help support the industry.
That's great. So dates, location?
Yes, we are April 8th. We are back at the Enercare Center in Toronto, and registration will be launching, I believe it's this week, actually.
Excellent.
It'll be open for early registration so people can start to book their times. If they're coming in from out of town, please book your hotel room in advance because this is not a friendly hotel room city. But we'd love to see people there, and it's going to be a great 3 days.
Excellent. So how do we get in touch with you? How do we get more information from Restaurants Canada generally?
I'd love for people to follow us on our social media channels because our team does a great job of posting a lot of content that would then lead you to our website of restaurantscanada.org. But I really would love to see people tap into our social channels, and we do a lot of posting of policy changes, but we also talk about a lot of the supports that we offer and different aspects of the reports coming from Chris and all sorts of different pieces of what we do here at Restaurants Canada.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, Kelly, so thank you so much for joining us on the Food Professor podcast today. On behalf of myself and Michael, our producer, best of luck to you. And I'm sure that 2024 will be an exciting year for your industry.
Exciting for sure. It always is. Thank you both so much. It's been good.
All right. Take care.
All right, great interview. Really enjoyed. We got to get her back on. Hopefully, we can get her on the mic again during Restaurants Canada's big show.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, I'll be able to meet her. I mean, just listen to her.
Yeah.
I've never met her in person, but I would want to meet her now. Like, I really want to meet her and chat and talk about the industry for sure. She's great. She's awesome for the industry.
Last couple of items. Weight Watchers says they're sorry. Have you seen this? Weight Watchers' new president says they made a mistake. They are sorry. They have been a big advocate of taking ownership.
You tell me that they were buying Ozempic.
That's what they're sorry about, that they were not telling you to buy Ozempic. Basically,
really?
They have bought a company now where they will, in addition to their usual kind of counseling, they can in America, they can prescribe weight loss drugs of that same.
Really?
They said, we realize that
Does that cost you points?
I think it costs you money. They basically said, we should have acknowledged earlier that this is a chronic disease. It's not just willpower for some. There's a big role for these drugs. So Weight Watchers is all in. More news to follow on that. That's a pretty interesting development.
In. For these drugs, wow!
Like they're buying a company that can prescribe them to their members. Like they're all in.
That is very interesting. Right, so, but is there because they have a point system? Like, is that like?
I think the two run in conjunction, right? The two run in conjunction, right? So you have a program that helps you, trains you to eat better, but they're just saying, listen, it's not enough for people. And these drugs have a role to play. So that's them acknowledging that, yes, these drugs have a role to play. It's not all the stuff that we do. So
interesting. It'll be interesting to see whether or not they use these drugs as like some sort of onboarding mechanism for people who need to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like people who need to lose a lot of weight, not the 20-pounder.
Yeah. We're talking about
100 pounds. Losing 100 pounds is a lot of work. It takes time. You need to change your life.
Listen, I was in that industry for a while. The average person starts and stops. It's kind of like what Mark Twain said about quitting smoking. It's the easiest thing in the world. I've tried it 50 times. Right? I've done it 50 times.
Yeah.
Last one, I'll dedicate this episode to a real innovator in the restaurant area, real great Canadian, George Cohen, who passed away in his late 80s. I don't think he'd be happy with the state of business in Russia. Putin has really screwed the Russian people. McDonald's had to get out. He was the big.
Have you ever met George?
I never did meet him.
I've met him once, actually, for a special dinner at the University of Guelph when I was there. He just made everything like he made everyone feel special, really, and he wasn't above anyone. He was very simple, and he got an honorary degree from Guelph. He probably had a few, by the way. I can't remember from whom, but he did get one from Guelph because of his contribution to the Ronald McDonald House. I think personally, I think it was the Globe and Mail called me and asked me what is your first thought about George Cohen? Well, the Ronald McDonald House. There was just no program for parents. Who have a sick child. Like you drive your kid to hospital, you don't see your child for sometimes like 24 hours. It's devastating. With the Ronald McDonald House, you can actually be with your child all the time. So it made a huge of a difference for many parents. So and of course from a business perspective, Russia with love and some fries. For sure. So
anyway, and his son, right? His son makes one of the most popular, one of my favorite drinks from Georgian Bay Spirit Company, the Georgian Bay gins, ready to drink gins. So
that's right.
The tradition of innovation continues in the family. All right, well, that's it for this episode. I'm Michael Block, consumer growth consultant, keynote speaker, podcaster, and you are?
I'm your sidekick, the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
All right, everybody, we'll be back. Safe travels. We will be back next week, and we'll be talking about a whole bunch of these issues, including the big kahuna, the Canada's Food Price Report, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. And you're being very, very good about not revealing any stuff, but we're going to reveal some stuff on the podcast next week, so don't miss it. Stay tuned, everybody. Safe travels.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.